We are at the forefront of many innovative and exciting things developing in the world of senior living. With Tim Mallett, CEO of Forefront Living, as our guide, this show will shine a light on how older adults can embrace these changes to live active, happy, fulfilling, and thriving lives. Through discussions with senior living and hospice professionals, architects and designers, and people of all ages, will help today's seniors envision the art of the possible and take steps toward achieving the future of their dreams. Welcome to At the Forefront.
Welcome to At the Forefront. I'm Tim Mallett, CEO of Forefront Living, and we are trying something new today. Schedules being what they are, and several of us are in different places, and we are using technology to bring us all together. We have a very special and I think very interesting program today, and it concerns spirituality and being faith-based. And for those of you who are not familiar with Forefront Living, we are a faith-based organization originally founded in 1962 as a mission of Grace Presbytery in Dallas. Over the years, we've evolved to serve many different markets, but at the very core of our continuum and at the core of who we are is faith and spirituality. I'm very excited about the two guests we have today. I'd like to introduce Reverend Denise Odom, who serves as Director of Spiritual Life for Presbyterian Village North in Dallas, and very pleased today to have Rabbi Howard Wolk with us today. He serves as Community Chaplain with Jewish Family Services, as well as he provides chaplain services to Faith Presbyterian Hospice. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We will just jump right in with our questions. And I think perhaps the first question I'll direct to you, Rabbi, is what is the difference between being a faith-based organization versus a religious organization?
Thank you for the invitation for today. I think to me, a faith-based organization is that how we interact with people, how we reach out to people is based on the values of our faith, the foundational principles of our ethics. And from a Jewish perspective, how we interact with people really is not determined by the person with whom we're interacting, meaning we're seeking to respond to certain life situations from an ethical standpoint, whether the person is Jewish or not Jewish. Jewish Family Service, 50% of our individuals that we service are not Jewish. I've often been called to the bedside of an individual who's not of the Jewish faith, whether to offer counseling, to offer guidance to family members. Religious organization, whether it's a congregation or educational organization, I think is more focused on the person fulfilling the principles or the dictates of his or her faith.
Denise, I would ask you the same question.
All right, thanks, Tim. Echo a lot of what Rabbi Wolk said, and that when we're faith-based, the heart of who we are is based on our faith. It's influenced by our faith traditions, predominantly, in this case, Judeo-Christian, and leaning on those things that make us faithful, our commitment to humanity and one another, as well as our commitment to God, but not exclusive of any particular religion. I tell residents in different occasions, right? We're not the same as a church. We don't have a particular doctrine or theology that we are teaching, that we are expecting people to follow or uphold, but we are influenced, right, in all the myriad of ways that a person's faith influences them personally, but also as an institution. At least at PVN and through Forefront, right, we try to uphold some of those faith-based things are diversity. We look at stewardship. We look at the humanity of a person, the compassion that we have for one another, regardless of a person's faith. As Rabbi Wolk said, we both minister and show up for people who may or may not be our same faith tradition, but it doesn't mean we can't honor them and accompany them and simply be there for them in those moments of crisis or moments of struggle.
You both touched on serving individuals of other faiths. Talk to me about the commonalities that you find when you are sitting down with somebody who isn't Presbyterian, perhaps isn't Jewish, perhaps doesn't respond to a denomination at all. What commonalities do you find or establish when you have those conversations? Rabbi, I'll start with you.
I think it's relating to the person on a human scale, individuals facing crisis, end of life issues, etc. No matter what their faith is or whether they don't have a faith, probably experiencing the same kinds of feelings, emotions, doubts, quandaries. If I give you a quick example, many years ago, I remember it was Memorial Day weekend. I got a call from Baylor Hospital in Dallas. There was a man there from Japan who had come in for a kidney transplant. And now he tells them, because of his faith, I think the Shinto religion, he doesn't want to go through the surgery. So I'm not sure exactly why they called me. I think they went down the alphabet and they got desperate. They got to W. Everyone was out of town for Memorial Day. And so, but I come in and talk to him. So I'm driving down Central thinking, what can I say to him? If I quote from Leviticus, I'm not sure how greatly he'll relate to that. So I spoke to him about himself, his family, he's married, he has children. So basically my thrust to him was, his going through the surgery was not just for himself, but for his family as well. And I was able to connect with him on a human level, and it didn't matter that we had very diverse backgrounds.
Reverend Odom, same question.
Very similar response, right? You connect with that humanity of all people. I always tell people when they ask, what do you do for spiritual life? And I'm like, well, regardless of our faith tradition, we are all spiritual people, right? We take care of our physical bodies, our emotional selves, but we also have a spiritual side that needs care. And Rabbi, you hit that right on the head, right? Those human qualities that connect all of us are the places we can all find connection. And regardless of our differences and regardless of our faith differences. So that's where we try to connect.
We talked earlier, and Reverend Odom, I believe you made the comment that today with the two of you we're talking really about the Judeo-Christian tradition, but Rabbi Wolk just mentioned someone who was of the Shinto faith, and I would ask, as we look at our broad spectrum of the people we serve, who else do we serve besides folks who are Presbyterian or folks who are Christian or folks who are Jewish?
Did you lob that to me? Yes.
That'll be for you. Yes, yeah. That'll be great.
In our community here, I would say the largest other group would be those who are none, right? You may have heard that term before. They don't ascribe to any particular faith tradition. It doesn't mean they're atheist. That's a whole different thing, but they just aren't ascribing to a particular faith tradition. And that's almost one of the larger groups of people that we have, at least in this community. Staff-wise, we get a little more multidimensional in our faith. We have quite a few people who follow Islamic tradition, who are Muslim. And so we try to find ways of connecting right with them and honoring them. We just got through their high holy days of Ramadan, and how do we as a staff take care and nurture them, those who are following right in the fasting during the daytime. and just trying to honor all of those things and recognize even in our public spaces, right, during different holidays, trying to, at least allow for expression of those other holidays. In our community right now, there's not another huge group of people that we know of.
Yeah, Rabbi Walk, I would, and I do know at Faith that we have a very broad range of individuals that we serve, and I think Denise has touched on a few. Do you have anything to expound on that question as far as who we may serve at Faith?
My experience has been, again, on an individual basis, whether it's talking to a Muslim patient or someone who has no faith yet, maybe a better way, maybe a nicer way to put it. But just being able to relate to them, for them to sense that you're not coming in being judgmental. You're not expecting any behavior or actions on their part. And look, even when I go to visit a Jewish patient in a hospital, I'll ask them, be all right with you if I say a prayer? Now, I don't think I've experienced where someone said, don't say it. But sometimes people say, well, I'm not affiliated, I'm not religious. So I said, our prayers, the Psalms are for everyone. And we're looking not to build barriers, but rather to overcome whatever obstacles there may be in between the individual, the clergy person, and the patient.
Well, an interesting question I would ask both of you, and you both touched on that there are individuals who perhaps don't relate to a particular denomination and maybe even not to being spiritual, but yet they're coming to a faith-based organization. So my question would be, what value does being a faith-based organization bring to individuals who are not identifying?
Well, I think it may be an experience we've all had, that even people that perhaps neglected their faith, didn't think about it, when life is getting difficult and presenting health challenges, family challenges, and they see that maybe the culture around them really doesn't offer them any comfort, doesn't offer them any guidance, they'll turn back to their source, to their background, even if they haven't been in touch with it for decades.
Denise, I see you nodding.
Certainly agree, yes, with everything Rabbi Woke said and have experienced that. The other piece I also think of, one of the values of coming to a faith-based place, institution, organization here in what we do. Rabbi, you talked, and alluded to it, when we hit crisis moments, regardless of what our faith tradition or our connection to our local faith tradition, you need somebody who's going to walk with you through the crisis, through the death, through the funeral. These are the kind of things, and everyone needs a companion on that journey. And that is one of the things, at least here at PVN, that I can say from my experience that I've done, helped walk through that process of what do you do when a loved one has died? How do you celebrate them? You still want to honor who they were and somehow celebrate them at the end of life. And we can provide those things. Even, yes, I have a faith tradition, and for people who are of faith is one, we have one approach, but I've done services for people who, may have found themselves in that none category, but they still appreciate, Rabbi, like you said, they appreciate prayers and they appreciate getting connected back to something they may have lost touch with. even if it's not the full focus of what they're doing. So, but they all need companions is how I look at it. We all need companions on that journey especially when it gets hard.
So an interesting question, and I probably should have asked this at the beginning, is both organizations have Presbyterian in their name. Reverend Odom, Presbyterian Village North, Rabbi, Faith Presbyterian Hospice. What does Presbyterian mean to the individuals we serve? Is that something that's welcoming, or is that a barrier? Whoever would like to take that question first, please chime in.
Rabbi, you have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a question that's, maybe, for the person who tries to sign the patient up for the T-Boone Pickens facility. When I'm asked to visit someone, whatever hesitation they may have, they've overcome. In a way, perhaps it's akin to, right? I think for a long time, just an organization having the word hospice in their name, kind of, to many people's minds, hospice was kind of like a dirty word, and people needed to be educated about it. I know within the Jewish community, certainly Faith Presbyterian Hospice has a good name, where people who are not Presbyterians feel comfortable being serviced at the facility.
Denise, I would ask you the same thing. If we look at the faith of the residents we serve at Presbyterian Village North, Presbyterians make up under 20% of those we serve.
Yes.
Have you had any thoughts or comments from our residents?
Yes. And it's a variety of terms. I would say there's a lot of people, at least in orientation, I'll start there and then I'll get to your resident question, Tim. With orientation, when we have new teammates that join our organization, and talking to them a little bit about the history of our association with the Presbyterian Church, I will say not every single person, in the wider culture knows that Presbyterian is a Christian denomination. We'll start there. And of course, in our proximity to Presbyterian Hospital, there's an association there with healthcare, which of course is a longtime association within the Presbyterian denomination. Full disclosure, I happen to have been raised Presbyterian. So for me, I have that tradition. And people, when I tell them resident-wise, will say, well, of course. And I said, no, you don't have to be Presbyterian to work here. I just so happen to be. Now, I will say for our residents, sometimes it is I don't know that it's a barrier. It's more of a barrier in the sense of sometimes there's an expectation that we only operate in a certain way, and that some of the same policies and or theologies and practices of the church also translate here. And I have to say, well, no, we're not governed under the ordinances, right, of this particular Christian denomination. We have that name, but we don't operate within their framework. They don't decide what we do. We decide, right, as a community, with our committees and our staff and our leadership. So that's where it comes up more often, than as a pushback of, well, I'm not that, so I don't feel welcome.
Those thoughts, we say at orientation, we say in our collateral materials that we are a faith-based organization, but we demonstrate our faith through values. So what does that mean when you demonstrate faith through values? What does that mean to each of you? And I think, Rabbi Walt, you started our conversation by talking about values. Maybe you could expound on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, values in terms of sensitivity to the individual, realization that every human being is created in the image of God, that we're here to try to, if not able to heal, to soften the pain, to comfort the patient and family members. We're not there to test people, to what extent did they observe a Passover? To what extent did they celebrate Easter? We're there to, literally minister to the flock. And we're, pardon the pun, we should never be sheepish about it.
Reverend Odom, you're at the very beginning of our continuum. You serve really through independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. I think the same values question to you.
Certainly, and I echo Rabbi Woke. I think we honor the divine spark, so to speak, right? We're all made in the image of God. That is the faith of that's the belief of the Judeo-Christian religion. Beyond that too, right? Part of that, at least for me personally, and I know many of us who work here, right? It's loving one another. We love each other. We companion each other. I'm reminded of what secularly we call the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's also scriptural based. Almost all faith traditions have some version of that in, right, their theologies. And I think that's one of the things we try to value, right? We try to, the tagline we use, right, our not tagline, but right, our moments matter. Every moment matters. And because in that moment, we can love somebody, we can do to them what they need, and help them in whatever way they need help, because they matter to us and to the world. And so that's kind of what I would say.
As we look at our time together nearing an end, I do have a couple of final questions. And Rabbi Walk, I'll ask you maybe to address this one. Faith is accredited by the National Institute for Jewish Hospices. Can you talk to us a little bit about that accreditation and what it means?
It means that, first of all, Faith Presbyterian Hospice should be, commended for seeking this certification. It sends a very important message to the Jewish community that the chaplains are sensitive to Jewish tradition, and that if they're not particularly familiar with, what does Jewish tradition say we should do or not do in this situation, they'll consult me, they'll consult a rabbi. I think it underscores the idea of trying to be really inclusive to the whole Dallas community. It really concretizes basic Jewish values of the importance of human life. You mentioned a moment ago about every moment. The Reverend mentioned every moment being precious. In Jewish tradition, a person has an hour to live. That life is as sanctified as someone who has 70 years to live. Because human life is of infinite value, any piece of infinity is still infinite. And so I think that's what the accreditation says. It says that people have done homework, you've gone to the conference and studied, and also important that people are taught to ask, not only the patients and the family members, but staff members as well, to ask, what does Jewish tradition say about the approach I should take in this particular situation?
Well, and I would ask, and thank you for that response. I would ask if either of you have an example of the meaning that this organization has brought to someone we serve. The fact that we are faith-based, the fact that we have gone out and researched how to serve people of other faiths, Janice, to serve people of other cultures. You mentioned Ramadan. Are there any individual stories that either of you have about the people we serve that may be an example to others?
I mean, not too long ago, maybe a couple of months, visited someone several times, you know, on Merritt Drive, and one daughter lived here, one daughter lived in San Antonio, I think the other daughter lived in Pittsburgh, but they all commented to me individually during different visits, the care that their elderly mother was receiving and the sensitivity that the staff had. And, you know, I would say really across the board, and I'm not saying it just because I'm on your podcast, across the board, every family I've interacted with there has only said positive things, both during the treatment and after, unfortunately, the person passed away. In reflecting on the parent or the person's time there, the family members were very, very appreciative and felt good and comfortable that they made the right decision for their elderly relative to go to your facility.
Thank you. Reverend Odom?
Not a particular story other than I know part of what we do, at least here, right? Because I have the benefit of having some of these residents for a long time, much longer than you might, Rabbi, you know, in a hospice situation. You know, I get to spend a lot of time and build those relationships. And I think and that is to me how we bridge any of our differences, is building those relationships with one another, regardless of, and maybe even with our differences. I know I have been invited to participate in the funeral of one of our Jewish residents. We have not had to use it yet, but the family has said, you know, she loves you, loves spending time with you, and you've just been such a part of her life in the 6 years you've been here. We, you know, when that time comes, want you to participate in some way. And I've done many services for people who are not my particular faith tradition. They may be Christian, but it's a different tradition, invited to lead those services. But kind of coming back around full circle, I have never visited a resident in crisis, especially like in a hospital or in our skilled nursing, regardless of their faith, who isn't appreciative of the attention shown, the offer to prayer, whether they, you know, to pray for them. I, like you, Rabbi, I always ask permission, you know, would you like to have a prayer? And I think that it's those relationships and just that building and being there in those moments to accompany people. And it's happened on numerous occasions here at PVN.
And I could say, as a family member, and my mother lived at PVN, Denise smiling, that the comfort and the security that brings to me as a family member, to me as the CEO, and it wasn't just in that hour of emergency, but it was throughout the day. It was that connection. And as we conclude, I can say that both of you represent, I think, the greatest strength we have as an organization. And I thank you both for the time and dedication to the people that we serve and to our teammates. So I thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you for being at the forefront.
Thank you.